Go ahead and start the meeting at 6:01. I see everyone's on board, and I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, Louis.
Fantastic. Hey, welcome everyone to the February 17th meeting. I think it's the first time in many years that we've had two meetings in one day. We had a workshop and a regular meeting, and this is our first evening meeting for well over a year. And it's a little different. I'm getting used to those noon meetings, but this is pretty good. So we have a full quorum. I see everyone's on board here. I'm going to ask for approval of the February 3rd minutes. Do we have a approval of the minutes?
Also moved. Okay.
We have Jean with a motion and Earl with a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Financial report and payment of the bills. Do we have a motion to approve the financial report and payment of the bills?
So move.
Second.
So moved, Commissioner Gibbons, second by Rob Maspiano. Any discussion on the financial report and payment of the bills? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have a couple budget amendments tonight. I'll just go ahead and go over them. If we have any questions, we'll ask the board. We have the first one, which is Budget Amendment 2021-01, and it's to recognize the newly detailed annual general liability insurance from local government insurance trust for $16,669. Do we have a motion to accept budget amendment 2021-01?
Commissioner Gibbons, I so move.
Earl Pyer, second.
Any discussion? Steve Repole, real quickly. Can you give us a little bit, is this accepting 16,000?
No, this is just transferring $16,669 of budgeted expenditure for general liability insurance. They gave us their annual bill with a little more detail broken down by department than they had in the past. So we have simply transferred that dollar amount from the mayor commissioner's account into HR's account. There's no more money to the bottom line of the general fund.
Okay,
Just
perfect.
transferring it between the departments.
That's what I was thinking it was. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next budget amendment is 2021-02, and it's to budget the Senator William H. Amos Fire Rescue and Ambulance funds received from the Cecil County government and transferred to the William M. Singerly Steam Fire Engine and Hook and Ladder and Company for $5,818. And once again, Steve Repole, this is just transferring from one to the other.
Well, this is actually recognizing additional revenue to the town, which is the amount given to us by Cecil County that we then transfer to Singerly Fire Company, the same dollar amount. So we've increased both the revenue and expenditures, but there's no added burden to taxpayers. We have received this money and we're going to transfer it to Singerly.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Bob Meffley, for sending that money over. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, it is 6:05. We have a public hearing tonight. So the public hearing is on ordinance 1-2021, amending the Elkton zoning ordinance, Article 10, permissible uses, Section 7.2 regarding veterinarian services, presented for introduction only. Jean or Nick, is there anything you need to add to this?
No, the Planning Commission had a public hearing, and on Monday, February 8th, and the ordinance was originally published to read permitted by right, but after discussion, the Planning Commission preferred to have this use permitted by special exception. in the business industrial zone.
Very good. Well, this is a public hearing. Is there any one from the board that have any questions or comments in regards to the recommendation from the Planning Commission?
Hearing
What did
none.
you find out about this veterinarian? Anything like a name or if they had business in Cecil County previous?
I'm sorry,
Last time-
I only called every other word.
Could I ask everyone to go on to mute if you're not speaking? I think it'll make a world of difference. There's a little bit of background noise, and then we'll have Rob Maspiano.
Last meeting I had asked if we know who the veterinarian is and whether or not they had done business in Cecil County previously. At that point, we did not know. Have found anything out?
I believe Chip Bromwell sent an email out adding a little more information. I don't know that he had the name of the person that wanted to open up the veterinary hospital or veterinary services. Chip had recommended that it stay permitted by right as opposed to permitted by special exception, since it's permitted by right in the C1, C2, C3 and business park zones already. So that was his only comment that I recall seeing via email.
Does that answer your question, Rob?
Not really, but
We don't have a name, I don't think.
No, I don't think we do. And
No, we
and
don't.
I think what they're, by changing the permissible uses, it's going to allow a veterinarian use in that zoning is what it does. Is that correct, Gene?
Yes.
So really, for our purposes, we don't, it'd be nice to know the name, but I think for our introduction purposes, I don't think we need to know the name yet at this point.
okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone else from the board have any questions or comments regarding this? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public have any comments in regards to this permissible use? Hearing none and seeing none, it is 6:08. We're going to close this public hearing in regards to ordinance 1-2021. Do we have a motion to approve ordinance 1-2021?
So move.
So move. We got a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Heiner and a
Second.
second by Commissioner Givens for introduction purposes only. Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, it is now 6:09 and we have our second public hearing of the night. And it's on ordinance 2-2021. It's amending the Elkton zoning ordinance, Article 10, permissible uses, Section 7.2 and Article 7, which is supplementary use regulations regarding commercial apartments. Presented for introduction. Gene, can you give us a little bit of insight on this before we move forward?
Yes, commercial apartments which are apartments that are above a commercial use, such as an office or retail use or restaurant. Commercial apartments are currently permitted with certain conditions in the C1, which is near the downtown, the town center zone, and in small and large planned unit developments. This ordinance is proposing to also include the residential office zone, which is adjacent to the town center zone. And the residential office zone ordinarily would allow either a residential use or a commercial use, office type use in that zone. But a majority of the homes in the area in that zone are already non-conforming because they have historically been used as offices on the first floor and commercial apartments on the second floor or above the first floor. So this ordinance basically allows it with certain conditions. um, um, which is, you probably wouldn't notice any difference in the downtown after this ordinance is adopted. The ordinance includes a special condition in the RO zone that states that no more than 2 apartments are permitted above the street level office. So it restricts the density of the apartments in the RO zone, which is sort of a transition zone between the town center and the adjacent straight residential uses.
Hey, Gene, could I ask a question?
Sure.
What prompted this change in the ordinance? What caused this to occur?
Well, again, Chip had recommended it. He, I guess, dealing with uses, folks requesting certain uses, he ran into problems with folks trying to reuse certain buildings and either creating just a total, commercial or office use versus a mixed use. And he stated that most of the units in this zone are already mixed uses now. So they're sort of non-conforming, and he wanted to just basically codify it. And since it didn't seem to be a problem to have offices on the first floor and 2 commercial apartments on the second or floors above the first.
I understand. I didn't know if it was a particular business that was interested in this, that prompted it, or was just a general thing.
And it may have been, but I didn't ask about the particulars of it. It was just a general discussion with Chip.
Very good. Anyone from the board have any questions or comments in regards to this ordinance for introduction purposes only?
No.
It is a public hearing. Does anyone from the public have anything to say about this ordinance to put it onto the record? Okay, I'm going to ask the board for a motion to approve ordinance 2-2021, amending the Elkton zoning ordinance, section 10 of our permissible uses, and it's for introduction purposes only.
So moved, Commissioner Mastriano.
We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second.
I think some of us are still on mute.
Oh,
I just,
No,
are we good?
we actually put you on mute a
go
minute
ahead.
ago. Your phone is whistling a
Oh.
little bit, I think.
Okay,
Commissioner Brumel, is there a television on behind you?
no. I'm in a room all locked up by myself.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm trying to go through, and I apologize for interrupting. I'm trying to go through each participant because we've got feedback coming, and it sounds like a telephone or television or something going on in the background. And that's why
Yeah,
I'm working
no.
my way through, trying to
Okay. Not here.
figure out where it is.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for introduction only. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. It is 6:14. This public hearing is closed. Okay, next up on the agenda, we have a discussion in regards to the Elkton Housing Authority. And we are joined tonight by several members and director of the Elkton Housing Authority. And I guess, Lou, do we want to open up the floor to them to give us do we have a specific agenda here?
Certainly, I think it's a good opportunity for them to update the mayor and commissioners on what's happening at the Elkton Housing Authority.
Perfect. Who wants to run? Cindy, are you?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Chairman Hicks to first open up just to introduce who's present so that he could do that, please. So Chairman Hicks, would you please do that first?
I will, thank you. Myself, we have Jerome Garrett, our board, one of our board members. We should have Vincent White. Is Vincent White present? Okay, I believe Vincent White would be trying to join in right after his work.
Excuse me, Charles, he was supposed to try to join in just by telephone.
Just by telephone? Okay. So he may join in at a later time.
Thank you.
We also have, Mayor and Commissioners, we have our interim director, Cindy Herrera, along with her management, Emily Mercer. And that's who we have attending the meeting. We greatly appreciate you guys allowing the time for us to explain officially the position of the Elkton Housing Authority as we look to move forward.
Thank you.
And Michelle, if you could bring up the PowerPoint now, and then I'll just say next slide when I'm ready to move it. Okay? Does that work?
Okay, bear with me.
All righty. Great. Great, thank you. Okay, we want to talk a little bit this evening about the path forward for the Elkton Housing Authority. Michelle, go ahead to the next slide. We're going to do that by putting everything into context. We're going to talk a little bit about the past and where we are today and what we think the future should look like for the Housing Authority. Next slide. Let me start first of all by saying, what is the Elkton Housing Authority? I think sometimes people don't realize what a housing authority really is. And so they're kind of unique in that they are impacted by all three levels of government, the local, the state, and the federal government. Housing authorities exist because state laws have been created that allow local municipalities to set up a housing authority. So under the state of Maryland, there was a law that was passed that said local governments can create housing authorities. The town of Elkton in 1968 passed an enabling resolution that basically created the Elkton Housing Authority. So the Housing Authority is in fact a creation of the town, and it represents the town of Elkton. In addition to that, the town is responsible for the governance of the Housing Authority. So the town has all responsibility to appoint the board members and basically make sure that the Housing Authority is being governed appropriately. The funding from the Housing Authority, however, comes from the federal government, predominantly from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. They provide the funding under a contract arrangement with the Housing Authority. So there's a contract between the Housing Authority and HUD that governs all of the funding that we receive and basically requires us to comply with all of the regulations. So housing authorities are very unique, as you can see, in that we have to balance all three levels of government. Next slide, Michelle. So a little bit about the past of Elkton Housing Authority. For the past 40 years, Elkton Housing Authority has owned and managed 150 units of public housing. Public housing is sometimes used as a generic word for any type of assisted housing, but it's actually a very specific federal program. It is a program in which HUD provided construction grants. So the housing that the Elkton Housing Authority built, we built 3 communities of 50 units each in the 1970s. Those communities were built with a grant that was received by the federal government. Those communities were then operated based on an annual operating grant that the Housing Authority provides. In the 1990s, basically all public housing construction grants were terminated. And since that time, housing authorities have not had any funding that have allowed them to be able to build any new public housing. So this was kind of the federal government's way to start backing out of the traditional public housing program. Next slide. So since that time, basically HUD has looked at public housing and said, we need to try to reposition this public housing since we're no longer going to fund the public housing program. So in 2019, HUD basically said, we want you to move out of the public housing program. Currently, our public housing funding, as I mentioned, comes from HUD, but it's based on annual appropriations. So even though we have a contract with HUD that says we're supposed to get X number of dollars, the amount that we actually receive each year is based on what Congress appropriates. Historically, Congress has always appropriated the public housing funds at a much lower level than what they have appropriated the Section 8 Housing Assistance Program. So to try to address the underfunding in public housing, HUD called for repositioning, meaning take your public housing out of the public housing program and convert it to a Section 8 subsidy. Next slide. The reason that HUD is really pushing for housing authorities to do this conversion is because of this backlog of capital needs. As I mentioned, while we're supposed to get a certain amount of funding, we really only receive what Congress appropriates, and that amount has continuously gone down since about 1990. Today, HUD estimates that there is about $60 billion of a backlog in capital needs for the public housing across the country. And that backlog is growing by about $3.5 billion per year. Next slide. So the current state of the Housing Authority is that we have gone forward with what HUD has asked housing authorities to do. And that is that we are converting our public housing to vouchers, Section 8 housing choice vouchers. The reason that we do that is it allows us to access private capital. Public housing properties have restrictions on them, and you cannot go out and borrow money or access any type of private capital to be able to improve those properties. So what Elkton Housing Authority did is we partnered with a developer. This is kind of a common way that housing authorities do this conversion or this repositioning. We partnered with Ingram Development. Ingram Development then secured private investment through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. There's private equity as well as private mortgage funds to be able to renovate the public housing properties. When that occurs, the ownership of those properties is transferred to a private-public partnership. So this partnership is made up predominantly of the investor that brings the private capital in to be able to do the rehab on the properties. So today, Elkton Housing Authority no longer owns or will manage the public housing. The housing will be converted to private housing, and it will be basically managed by Ingram Development. So what the Housing Authority will do going forward is that we will administer the vouchers that are on those properties. And that's actually, even though we had 150 units, it's really only going to be about 100 vouchers that we will administer. Some of those vouchers are being administered directly by HUD. So the Housing Authority will be left with about 100 vouchers to administer.
Cindy,
Yes. Yes, sir.
I hate to interrupt you, but I don't know if everybody on the board knows what a voucher is.
Okay.
Can you give us a description of what that actually does?
Sure.
What is a voucher?
Sure. A voucher is actually, there's two types of vouchers. The voucher is what's formally referred to as the Section 8 program. And what a voucher does is it basically puts a subsidy on a particular housing unit. And the tenant pays 30% of their income towards the rent, and the voucher provides a subsidy payment for the difference between the tenant portion of the rent and the market rent for the unit. So let's say you have a unit and the market rent is determined to be $800. The tenant may pay $200, and the voucher provides a subsidy to pay the additional $600 to the owner of that property. So
Where does that $600 come from?
It comes from the federal government. That money is still funded by HUD.
Okay, I didn't know because I had the impression from you that they had a deficit in the money they provided for these things.
They did for the public housing program.
But not for this.
That's why we've taken the public housing program and converted it to the vouchers. And that's why we've partnered with Ingram Development. That's why if the town to understand what's different from what the Housing Authority was doing before to what we're doing today.
Okay, so those 100 vouchers represent 100 units or families, for example, that would occupy a house based on a subsidized rent.
That's correct. That's correct. Thank you for those questions, because that really clarifies things for anyone who had more questions. Any other questions? Okay, next slide. Okay, so now that we have no longer have any public housing, the Housing Authority also does not have any federal operational funding. And so the funding that we receive for those units basically goes away. We do receive administrative revenue for the vouchers. So we receive the money to pay to the landlord or to the owner of the property. But then for each of those vouchers, we also receive a small monthly payment from HUD that gives us the money to administer those vouchers. However, because we have only 100 vouchers, the amount of revenue that we're going to get from those administrative funds really will not support full-time staff in the future, okay? In addition to that, our current state, I think everybody's aware, in 2019, the audit of the Housing Authority revealed that there were inappropriate expenditures of the federal funds. This is something that the Housing Authority has been working on for the last several months. We have completed a reconciliation that was critical to us being able to return to a good standing with HUD. That reconciliation has been completed. The detail was submitted to HUD, and we are in the process of negotiating a repayment agreement to pay those funds back to HUD from money that we will receive from Ingerman as part of a developer fee in the process of the redevelopment. So that's kind of the current state of the Housing Authority. So as it stands today, we will no longer have any public housing. We will only have the vouchers that we will administer. We will receive a small administrative revenue for those vouchers. We have reconciled the inappropriate expenditure of funds and are working with HUD on finalizing the repayment agreement. So we've basically been able to resolve all of those issues with HUD, which puts us back in good standing with HUD at this point.
Cindy,
Yes.
the administrative revenue for the 100 vouchers, can you quantify what that is in money?
Yes, it's approximately $83,000 a year, per year.
Okay, for those 100 vouchers.
Yes, sir. It's
Okay.
received on a monthly basis, and it adds up to about $83,000 for the entire year.
Okay, and the reconciliation, the payment back to HUD for the inappropriate expenses, what's the source of revenue for that reconciliation disbursement?
As part of the conversion process, when we sold the properties to Ingerman to be redeveloped, the Housing Authority received a developer fee. So we received a portion of a fee. Those funds are considered non-federal funds. And so those funds are eligible to use to repay HUD. We cannot use federal funds to repay them. We have to use non-federal funds.
How much is the repayment?
We're still waiting for HUD to confirm that amount, and I would prefer not to disclose that in a public meeting at this point because there is possible pending litigation.
I understand.
Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so one of the things that we looked at is as we analyzed the Housing Authority, dealt with our current challenges, is that we basically said, what's the future of the Elkton Housing Authority? And we recognize that there is a tremendous need for affordable housing in the area, in the town of Elkton, in the state of Maryland, and across the country. Affordable housing is something that's desperately needed. There's an ongoing increased demand. The economic and market conditions have driven rents to levels beyond the reach of many households. The economic boom that we had before the pandemic, and even during the pandemic, has driven rents to very high levels. And so that's really exacerbated the demand for affordable housing. So we believe that the Elkton Housing Authority does provide a critical service to the town of Elkton. And that is that we try to address the housing for the most vulnerable citizens in our community. Next slide.
A question. Oh, I have another question. I'm sure
Yes,
the board's curious. The people that receive these vouchers, do they have to be a resident of Elkton or Cecil County or state of Maryland, or is it governed by some other criteria?
Well, because it's federal funding, we can't make it exclusive, but you can give a preference. So we have what's called a local preference. So there is a local preference for residents of Elkton. So as long as somebody from the town of Elkton would apply, they would get a preference to go above other people that could apply for the vouchers.
Okay. So it's a preferential thing.
It's a
but
preferential,
it's not assured.
correct. We can't deny anybody not from the town of Elkton, but it's rare for us to have people outside the town of Elkton. Usually we have enough people in the town that are on the waiting list that we can service people just from the town, and we can't even service those. So So as we
When
looked at, yeah, go ahead.
When a voucher is issued for a particular unit, a family, for example, how is that, once that voucher is in place, does it last forever, or is there a period of time in which it expires, or
There's
how's that work?
There's no time limits, but there's a point in which a family becomes no longer eligible. When 30% of the family's income equals the total rent, then that voucher is basically forfeited at that point in time.
Oh, I see, because they become more prosperous, so to
They get a
speak.
job, or they get a good job. Many of our clients are going to school, getting a better education, getting training, being able to, work for better things. And we obviously have spent time working with them as well to connect them to resources that will help them do that.
Okay.
So as we look to the future, we came up with a plan to say what should the future of the Elkton Housing Authority look like. The first thing we recognize is that we have to build immediate capacity to continue to administer the voucher program. This is critical to HUD. We have to be able to demonstrate to HUD that the capacity will be there to administer these vouchers. So our intent would be to hire an experienced part-time director who would administer the vouchers. There are a couple of people that we have spoken to that work for other housing authorities that are very small, and they're people that possibly could be hired for this position. So we're in the process of looking at that as a possible option. Our company, the current management company, is going to continue to assist the authority to help them select a highly skilled person who will have the technical knowledge of the voucher program to reassure HUD that the authority has the ability to operate the program at a high performance level. So our company is engaged to stay in place until the middle of this year. And we would continue to work with the Board of Commissioners to help them select the right person that has the technical knowledge to run the voucher program. Next slide.
This executive director, he'll be an employee of who?
This individual will be an employee of the Housing Authority.
Okay, and the Housing Authority will simply operate in order to monitor or to control the 100 vouchers.
Correct. The Housing Authority will administer the vouchers. Okay. And this person, it's about a part-time job because it's only 100 vouchers. So this person will be responsible for administration of those vouchers and all of the other ancillary things that come along with making sure that the Housing Authority stays on the right track and does what they need to do.
You had indicated the total revenue for the 100 vouchers was 83,000.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that your budget for executive director?
Yes, for a part-time position.
Whoa.
So the 83 would be the total revenue. That
That's what I'm
revenue
saying.
would include the fixed expenses. A part-time position would be probably about $35,000 to $40,000 for a part-time position.
I was going to say, because you need a little operating
Right.
expenses there.
It's about half of that revenue.
Okay.
Excuse me, Michelle, there's a lot of background noise. Can you mute everyone
Yes, I will.
except the speaker?
Yes, and Cindy, I'm going to mute everyone and then I need you to unmute yourself, okay?
Okay. That's
Now
fine.
bear with me. And actually, if everyone now will just mute themselves. And then Cindy, if you can unmute yourself.
I think I'm unmuted. Can everybody hear me?
Okay, is that okay, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm fine. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Very good. Next slide, Michelle. Next slide, Michelle. Okay. In addition to administering the voucher program, we've looked at the Housing Authority and said we have a key role to continue to find ways to address the affordable housing problem in the town of Elkton. And so the way that we want to build the future is to partner with a nonprofit organization. There are several nonprofits who do housing development, tax credit development. With that nonprofit, we would develop new housing either through the acquisition or the rehab of existing properties or through new construction under the low-income housing tax credit program. The tax credit program is really about the only way in which you can develop affordable housing in today's environment. So we would continue to work with an experienced organization that would partner with us to be able to address the housing needs. You know, we believe that there are some communities in the town of Elkton that can benefit from acquisition and some substantial rehabilitation, some multifamily properties. And we also believe that there might be opportunities for some new construction. Recognizing that with a part-time executive director, the Housing Authority would not be able to do that on their own. We feel that we can accomplish this by partnering with another organization that can work with us to move us towards this goal. The next slide, Michelle. So in summary, I want to say we know that the past has been a challenge for the Elkton Housing Authority. The present is a transition when we're moving from what we were to where we're going. And then finally, the future is going to redefine the Housing Authority. And we believe that the Housing Authority can support the town in addressing affordable housing through improving existing housing communities and construction of new housing opportunities for the vulnerable residents of the community. And that's it. And I will answer any questions and let any of the board members add anything if they so please.
Yes, my question to you, Cindy, and I just tapped it to speak. I served on the Housing Authority, I guess 3 or 4 years, I can't remember. And certainly you mentioned it earlier that there is a waiting list. How extensive is your list now? And what amount of time is a person allowed to stay on the waiting list before they sign again to get back on it? Of course, most people, once they get off, they never get back on it.
Right now, we have about 250 families, give or take, on our current waiting list.
How many?
About 250.
50, wow.
That's normal.
On our current waiting list, and that's about where it stays. That waiting list gets purged, or we go through it and contact people, and they're responsible for advising us if they're still interested in remaining on the waiting list. Someone can stay on the waiting list until they're called, but when we purge that list or we update that list, if they do not respond, they are then sent a letter advising them that because they did not respond, they will be withdrawn. So people sometimes get withdrawn because they either don't stay in contact to give us their updated information, or they don't respond to a letter that we send. So that's kind of a standard process. We have not opened the waiting list in a couple of years as far as taking new applications.
And your executive director is that person a full-time person that's in the office, or it's part-time?
Well, right now we have had full-time staff up until this point. There are still two full-time staff people. And then my company, myself and Emily Mercer, who's on the call with us here. Emily is here 2 weeks out of each month. And so we will, we provide the executive oversight and all of the things for the Housing Authority. There is full-time staff on a day-to-day basis. However, under this transition, there will not be. There will be a part-time staff person who will, be available only on a part-time basis.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
My question was, it seems like the Elkton Housing Authority wants to continue to do the voucher program. There was some question of whether to turn those over to the county.
Yes, sir.
So I'm asking, the belief here is for us to continue to have the Elkton Housing Authority handle the vouching. I'm looking for some guidance here from our.
Chairman, do you want to? I think I've responded. Chairman, do you want to add anything to that, Mr. Hicks?
I think you've responded very well, very professionally. At this point, we're asking for the support of the town, and I believe, Cindy, you've presented the letter for the Section 18.
Yes.
And again, that shows HUD that the town is in full support of what the Housing Authority is doing and moving forward. Also with, and that's needed to continue the Rudy Park transaction.
Right.
And then we'll move forward with appointing 2 more members, or is it 3 more members?
2 more members. We currently have 3 members, and it's a board of 5.
Very good.
That's
Okay,
correct.
I think I got my direction then. Earl, I think you had something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I think, so the way we can help them, I know we want to help support whatever way we can, but we're looking for a couple more board members. And what exactly do you need from the town other than our support? And then you want something like a letter of intent or something?
Yes, there is a draft letter that we presented to the town that we need to have executed in order to complete the Rudy Park transaction with Ingerman. And that letter basically just says that the town supports the conversion of Rudy Park to these project-based vouchers versus public housing, so that Ingerman has already secured the tax credits and the financing to be able to rehab that property. They're going to rehab the existing units and build an additional 18 units. So there'll be 68 units at Rudy Park instead of 50. Some of them will have vouchers and some of them will just be rent restricted through the tax credit program. So that letter is what we need from the town. We need that letter to be signed showing your support for the Rudy Park. And then we need the 2 additional board members as soon as possible. That's what HUD's looking for.
All right.
Thank you very much.
I think something that's very important to point out, we had 6 board members, including 1 resident board member, and 2 of our board members, including our resident board member, were basically elderly and decided to resign. And then we had another board member that resigned. So it's been very recent that we've had 3 board members. And I believe Chairman Hicks, I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he has a list and knows potential board members that's going to be presented to the city in the town of Elkton.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jerome, but you're absolutely correct. We've had the necessary board members actually for a little bit of time here. We just wanted to make sure that we, again, presented in a professional manner to the board and all that are interested in the clear direction that we're looking to take the Elkton Housing Authority moving forward in Elkton. But I can present you the 2 interested parties as early as tomorrow. I'll just confirm with them again that they are definitely interested and willing to move forward, and I can present those to you.
Perfect. Does anyone from the board have any additional questions for any of the participants?
I have one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jean.
Is there any way to increase the number of vouchers that we receive?
No, unfortunately, HUD is not increasing the number of vouchers. Occasionally, they will have like a special type of voucher, like the vouchers for the veterans, or they'll have a special allocation for people with disabilities. We have not been able to secure any of those additional vouchers at this time, but we certainly pursue that whenever HUD notifies us that there's an opportunity. But the regular vouchers, they simply have not done incremental funding of those for many years.
Wow. Okay.
Cindy,
So it's not based on population or anything like that.
No, unfortunately, it's not.
Cindy, could I ask a question? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Could I ask a question? So you're kind of the technical advisor here. How long are you contracted to serve in this capacity?
Our contract runs through May of this year. So we have about another 4 months.
Okay, and then you're out?
Unless the board chooses to make another decision.
Oh, I meant that.
Right,
I didn't know if there was a
we made
continuing
an agreement
thing.
for 1 year initially.
Okay.
All right. I don't know if the chairman wants to take that response. I mean, we have talked about that, or?
Right, we wouldn't want to discuss that at this point, but as Cindy absolutely let everyone know that it's definitely an option.
Perfect.
We have several different options that we're looking at, and as soon as we come up with the best solution, we promise we will let you know. But we're all in. I mean, and in a case like this, I mean, one of my favorite phrases is either we're all in or we're all out. And I tell you, everybody on this board right now is all in. That's why we're still here. We're going to make this work.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you. Anyone else have any? Yes.
Yes, and going forward, I guess Charles Hicks and other who's on the board, have you all come up with some formula how you're going to keep your executive director in check so you don't have the negativity that has happened here recently? And myself, I know going back in history, it happened perhaps 3 times. And certainly, you know, you want a new image, a new face. So I guess you have measures in place to make this check and balance, if I shall say.
Absolutely.
May I respond?
Absolutely, Commissioner. And one of the things.
Hey, Charles, I think Vincent wanted to say something.
One of the things, and I'll allow absolutely Vincent can speak on it because he's part of the rebranding committee along with Cindy. But absolutely, that was one of the reasons why we sought after Cindy and her professionalism in her group, is that she is helping to rebrand and change and absolutely help us put more stringent things in place so that something like this will not happen again.
Right.
Yes, guys, one of the things that I was going to say is that we have developed a system of checks and balances to give even stronger oversight on how the funds are being handled as well as being managed with the executive director and those who work for the Elkton Housing Authority. We're very pleased with what Cindy Herrera and her staff have brought to the table with us. It's something that I feel is much needed inside of our community. In the process of bringing them on board, we have begun to rebrand the Elkton Housing Authority. In essence, we want to give it a makeover. We're developing new logos and other things that will be presented when time presents to the town of Elkton, so that they can see clearly that it's our intent to step away from the things from the past, but to go in a total direction that's geared for really making our community what it should be and seeing to the needs of those people who are in need of public housing. You've seen heard the numbers. There's a great deal of people inside of our community who have that need. Many of them seniors, as well as that our interest is that of veterans as well that live inside of our community that are in need of housing.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board have any comments?
I've got one question. What are the determining factors that determine how many vouchers a municipality receives?
There's no formula. It was basically when the voucher program was first created, or the Section 8 program, it's actually referred to Section 8 because it's Section 8 of the 1974 Housing Act. And at that time, housing authorities simply had to apply for vouchers. And Elkton, over the years, they applied for a small number of vouchers, and for whatever reason, did not pursue additional vouchers over time. And so now it's very hard to get those because HUD does not fund incremental vouchers any longer. So it's very hard to get new vouchers. We would love to have, a couple hundred more vouchers. It's what we think the community needs. It will address the people on our waiting list. And we think that it certainly would be the ideal to have those additional vouchers, but HUD simply doesn't fund new vouchers at this point either.
Cindy, one question I'm sure the board is thinking about. Are all the Ingerman units, Village, Friendship Heights and 150 East Main Street, are all those units full of people?
Well, they're under construction right now, so no, they're not fully occupied because we've moved people around. So 150 is under construction right now, and Windsor's under construction as well. In Rudy Park, we have kept vacancies as people have moved out because we're going to start the construction there, and we're going to have to move people from one building to another as we do the construction.
It's phased construction.
It's phased, yes, it's phased construction in all the buildings. It's phased construction so that we wouldn't have to relocate too many people.
That's a good idea, how to do
Yeah,
that.
it's been a little challenging sometimes, but it's working. We're getting it done.
Good.
Thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. I think it was certainly brought us up to date. And Charles Hicks, if you could get us the names of those two other people you did share with me one other time, give me the both names after you confirmed them, and I think this board will move forward to support. So,
and then the other thing I don't want to forget is maybe Mr. George can make sure that we get that letter that we need.
Absolutely.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for being on.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner.
Okay,
I'd like to say one thing before they go off. I want to thank Charles, Vincent, and Jerome for holding things together and for reaching out to the town for support and for helping so many people in the community. I think you should be applauded for all that effort. Thank you.
We really appreciate that. Thank you.
We do really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, next up on the agenda, we had a workshop last week and we discussed the wetlands mitigation investigation by Geotechnology Associates at J. Evans McKinney Commemorative Park, the former fish hatchery. Lou, what do we need to do here?
You need to tell the town administrator that the board authorizes the geotechnical investigation on that property.
How's the board feel? I feel fine with it. We're going to do the test it to see if it's even feasible for this mitigation of wetlands. And all it is an investigation at this point.
I'm
So
fine
board
with it. Yes, support it.
Lou, you don't need a vote anyhow, as long as you got a consensus here. don't
Yes,
you?
that's all I need on that.
I'm good. Earl,
I'm good.
Dean,
I'm good.
Charles, and Rob. Just give me the thumb or down. You can keep your mute.
Yeah.
All right, good. Lou, you got,
I got it.
all right. Thank you. Andy, I don't think you needed to add anything tonight, right?
No,
good.
thank you all for.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have KCI Engineering Services. They're giving us a proposal for well 4 in the elevated water storage tank for Southfield's planned unit development. Lou, do you have that information and how much the
proposal by KCI involves the site development, all the design for the well and the site and the elevated tower and everything. And I think the total cost under that proposal is roughly $190,000. And although Ligi, who's the engineer, and Ryan had indicated in that proposal 58 weeks to complete the work, I think after we had the workshop today, I think they're going to try to slim that amount of time down, working with Ray Jackson's engineer, MRA, and try to reduce that 58 weeks to perhaps 6 months, for example. Don't hold me to that, but I think it's going to be an effort to reduce the amount of time, because once all that design work's done, it can be put out to bid, and then we can get a contractors lined up to do that construction. And I think it's a critical path item for that well and that tower for the Southfield's PUD to be successful. So I would recommend that the board authorize the KCI Engineering's proposal for well 4 and the tower. But yeah, I need a vote on that.
Lou, real quickly, is the Southfields development paying for this engineering cost?
No, the initial payment on it will be from the town's major facility fund, and then perhaps hopefully that we can we get money back when we do the bond issuance.
Okay.
But initially, we have to pay for it ourselves.
Okay, very good. Does anyone have any questions in regards to this? We had a workshop today and we discussed about the water tower and the placement and the geotechnical services and so forth on that site. Do we have a motion to move forward with KCI's proposal to move forward with the water tower?
So moved.
Second.
Actually, I actually had a Rob Maspiano. Was that a yes or was that a question?
Yeah, I'll mute it, but yes, I'll move.
Okay, we got a motion by Rob, a second by Charles. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Let's get that moving. Next up on the agenda, Lou, we have your report on a public works agreement.
Yeah, public works agreement. Ironically, we were just talking about the Ingerman Group and the Elkton Housing Authority for Rudy Park for the phase construction or reconstruction, actually, of that development. I think they're going to have 60 units, but they need a PWA with the town because there is going to be certain public infrastructure involved, largely just water, sewer, and perhaps some stormwater. So the public works agreement, and it'll be bonded. I think the bond's going to be about $239,000 for that work. And I would recommend that we authorize the public works agreement for Willows at Rudy Park, so they can have that step or that issue resolved.
We have a motion to accept the public works agreement for the Willows at Rudy Park.
So move.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on this motion and second on the public works agreement? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Only comment I want to make, I don't know when they're going to start, quote, moving dirt there, but I will let the board know when the actual construction begins. But they needed a public works agreement in order to start.
Thank you, Lou.
That's all I have.
Okay, under my report, I actually spoke to Mary McGault a little while ago, and I know Mary's on here. Mary asked me about the Lucky Charm race that we had for 2 previous years, and we didn't have it last year. We postponed it for this upcoming year. The concern is the condition of the park where we would be running, and with all this weather, it'd probably be a muddy mess come March the 16th or 19th, whenever the date that we had it. So I think that she's asking me, is it something that the town would be okay maybe to postpone till later in the year? Maybe we have it a 4th of July race this year. I don't know. But just wanted to ask the board if it was okay to postpone that. Or any feeling.
I have no issue.
Anyone else have any issue or comments on it?
I don't have any issues, but certainly with the shape of the park is in now, and maybe in the future, and it may not be, but sometime if you want to have an activity, you may have to adapt it. And so that might even be resorting to moving into Elkton High School track if it's available, some kind of way to do pretty much the same thing, only a different way. I mean, that's my thinking on it.
That's actually a great thought.
How about,
It is a good idea.
Mary, you're on here. Actually, I like the idea of maybe running around the park to keep it, let the thing go. Could you take a look at that and see? I'm having a tough time hearing you.
I was just saying, I don't think people want to run on 5. I'm sure they want to run. I'm not sure they want to run a whole bunch of laps around the track.
Okay,
I think they like to have a.
We can't hear a word from you. So listen, we're going to go ahead and postpone it.
With the internet.
Okay, we're going to postpone it, and
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, try it again. No,
At least I don't think people who want to do it, no, okay.
no, we can't. Thank you. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and postpone it till later on the year, and then you and I will get together about a date. Just wanted to keep the board in the loop on that. Earlier today, on the during the workshop, we talked about the major facility fees. I got an email. We got an email from Lou George, and it was a very good email. And what we're going to do is hold off on that vote until we can actually get some language on an actual agreement for the board to take a look at. So there's no doubt on exactly what we're doing. So I'm good with that. Hopefully by the first meeting in March, we'll have that in hand. And I'm going to ask the board to support me at that point. With that, there seems like there was something. No, earlier this week, we lost one of our former town commissioners, Ed McEwen. And Ed and I didn't see eye to eye all the time, but I can tell you this, I certainly respected Ed McEwen. He was a good person. He did a lot for the community. And I have to tell you, I know he's going to be deeply missed. And if there's, I guess we probably should reach out to his family. If there's anything the town of Elkton family can do for him and his family, please let him know that we're there for us or for him. And I don't know if I know that, is there anything any of the board members want to say about Ed McEwen at all, or?
No, I think you pretty much handled it. He served 4 years. He served for a good year. He was ambitious in a way, and a lot of things you question what he did, but you know, he served his term from day one to the last day of his term. So, you know, I'm like you, he'll be missed because he did a lot of things in the community.
He did. It's you know, us as elected officials, we get a lot of people. We all have different cliques of friends and relatives, and that kind of steer us and direct us, and that's what makes us a great team. And Ed's circle of friends, which included some of my circle of friends and your guys' circle of friends, it gives you a different perspective on things, and we learn from that. So it's very, very good. With that, that's all I have. Charles Givens, do you have anything this evening?
Yes and no. First of all, it's great that we're moving to get a new part of Elkton in Southfields. We just had the Housing Authority come here to, you know, talk about what they're doing to improve. We need not to forget about some of the houses, I guess, that we have in the interior part of the town that really needs to be either improved or something done to them to make them more valuable as a part of the town of Elkton. You know, you have some homes that they're boarded up and they're just sitting there, and you know, you have people to come to Elkton and you invite them there. You don't always want them to see what negative you have, but certainly every place has negativity, but it's just a thought.
Thank you, Charles. Jean, do you have anything tonight for the good of the board?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm kind of echoing your thoughts on Ed McEwen. We all, you know, get along with certain people a little bit better than we do others, but I will tell you, he always had his heart in the right place.
No question.
So I really, really acknowledge the fact that he, you know, served the town in that capacity and did the best job that he thought he could do. I have one question. After our workshop today about the major facilities, in order, I'd like to be on board, and I guess I have a question. When Lewis put this email out about wanting to put this document together, and then I think Ray Jackson responded that it would be made out to Southfield of Elkton, transferable to DR Hutton. I guess my question is, at that point, would that be the end of it? I mean, that it's not a perpetual agreement that would be transferable from DR Horton, like to ABC Builders? You know what I'm saying?
No,
Is there something? Yeah.
No, I agree with you. It should just be the DR Horton, and that's it. If it can't go to anyone else.
I would feel a lot more comfortable with that being in the language in some fashion, that it is non-transferable, and that it doesn't go on for 20 years. You know, I think to accomplish the goal that you and the board, you know, we want to put out there would be exactly that.
Correct.
I would even go a step further and say, I would be happy to put a term limit on it of 6 or 7 years. 6 years. I would even go, listen, if they don't get them done in 6 years, it didn't work.
Correct.
You can't stretch these things out year after year after year. So, I mean, I can tell you, I would be supportive of that, but let's get the language written and we'll all see the language, and any changes we need to make, we'll make it.
Oh, okay. We'll go from there. Yeah, that's a good point, because when you think of Walnut Hill and a few other places that kind of backfired on us, we don't want that to happen.
Absolutely. And that's 100%. If it turns into a project that doesn't get done for 20 years, it's not a success, in my view.
Thank you, man.
One of the things I want to comment on, I'll build on what you said. You have to be careful about an agreement. If it's just with DR Horton, that's good. But if you put successors in there, then it could end up being somewhere else. Because I know the goal here is to have at least 300 detached homes built, because that's a more, the 250, 375,000, or whatever they're going to be, will bring a whole different dimension to that development rather than a bunch of townhouses, so to speak.
Yep.
We have to be careful about who this agreement is with and what they can do with it, because I don't want them to bail out a year from now and then it goes over to a developer for multi-family housing. Not that I'm against that, but okay. I think I know.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you, Gene. Commissioner Piner.
I just want to give my condolence to the McEwen family. Thank Chuck Hicks and the group for coming in from the Housing Authority. And I thought all these meetings were pretty good today. So just want to thank everybody for hanging in there. I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Commissioner Massimiano.
I've got so many things I was going to talk about tonight. I'm going to table a few of them for next time. That pressing. First, I would like to thank Lewis for his excellent line of questioning during that Elkton Housing Authority talk, because it really cleared up a lot of things for me, and I'm sure others as well. And I'd like to request that he get a background behind him for next meeting, because that's freaking me out. I was wondering, because of my schedule at work, are we definitely going to have our third meeting of the month in the evenings from here on out? Are they going to be at 6, or can we go back to our 7 o'clock schedule like we used to? Do we have thoughts on that?
I would say to you, I'll work around. I think any of the board members would work around your schedule.
Really?
Do you guys like it at 7, or do you prefer it at 6?
It does not matter to me.
Charles?
It doesn't matter to me, but if Rob wants it at 7, he's got to pay me something.
All right. Well, he'll give you some free ink.
I'll pay.
He'll give you a free tattoo.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I just need to know how to go through my book and schedule all of my third Wednesdays for the rest of the year, so that I don't put appointments in there. Because I typically say booked a couple months in advance. So I have to plan.
Earl, you okay with it, or?
Rob, you can go anytime. At 2 o'clock in the morning is fine with me. It don't matter.
All right. Well, let's make our third, from here on out, the third meeting, third Wednesday of the month will be at the 7 o'clock meeting.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Rob, it's going to cost you some lawn mowing.
I already shovel.
All right, perfect.
Listen, tacking on to that, I was also wondering, Rob, you and I discussed this. Can we go back to in-person board meetings, even if it's just the board, and we can have everybody else on Zoom up on a big screen? If we do it above the town hall, there's plenty of room for us to distance ourselves. Everybody else can join the screen. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I can tell you what my reaction is. I'd love, I've thought about this since you and I spoke this morning. I would love to have at least the mayor and commissioners in a room together. Everyone else could be at home if they want to on that meeting night. And I believe that we could project a Zoom image on a projection screen that we could only need one speaker. So the challenge, I think, would be that if each of us had to have our own computer or our phone in front of us, I think it would cause too much background noise. But I do believe that if the board would like us to take a look at that, I would spearhead it and see if there's something I could put together with town staff. But I would only, I would say that town staff could still be at their home on the Zoom meetings for that night. But I kind of like being around you guys.
Can Michelle orchestrate that from home?
Yes, she's at home now. Yes.
But I mean, if we were to go into town hall, she could still do that from home.
I don't know that I could, but we'll just look into it and see what we can come up with. And
I mean, I don't want to, I'm all for getting together and I want to do it like yesterday. I don't want to put her in a situation that she may not,
Well, that's kind of you to say that, and I appreciate it, but I kind of like being around you all as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'd be very happy to be back there with you.
That took care of that question.
Well, let's shoot for the third Wednesday in March. Be our first. Then that way there's more people getting vaccinated. But I don't want to open it up to the public. I think it'd be the commissioners and the mayor being there. We still run the Zoom for the public, and whoever wants to be there, we have them be there. But we're going to wait for some input.
Okay. Let's see. What else do I have? I had a thought because we now have our own Instagram account. When I'm driving around and I have my Tidewater tattoo advertised on my truck, I get a lot of people asking me about my business, and then I hand out cards. I was wondering if we could have little decals or something to stick on our vehicles, on businesses, to bring our Instagram account to more people's attention. It would help us to spread the word about community events and things going on in the town.
I don't know. I don't know. What's a, you put it on there, how do you?
Magnet?
What do you call it?
Facebook and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know.
You can certainly tag, right? Is that what you're asking?
I think he's wanted to buy everybody on the board a truck or a vehicle so he can put some advertising. I'll take one if you buy them.
Here's the stick.
Maybe magnets?
Oh.
I'm sorry, I had to throw that one in. Yeah. Just like
Could put Tidewater tattoo on all of our vehicles.
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, there you go.
Talking about the same kind of magnets they use for election and all that stuff, right? Those little magnets.
Yeah, that sticker for the window.
Oh.
Not for your window, Earl. We'll get you a magnet.
I don't know if it'll fit on that motorcycle.
I had a talk with Ed Ginder and Marianne Jersey. What's Marianne's last name? Y'all know Jersey.
Oh, Jersey. Oh, yeah.
Yes. They would really like a sit down with us to discuss the community center. They honestly, they kind of feel like they're being, if I can just shoot straight, they feel like they're being ignored. I have assured them that they're not, more Jersey than Ed. And I think that it would be nice to sit down and kind of appease them a little bit, relieve them a little bit, you know, that we are concerned with the community center as much as they are.
But how are you going to appease them? They were given an assignment and the assignment was completed. We have a building, you have a person in charge, you have us there to put a program or whatever is needed. What is it that they need to do?
What I mean by that, Charles, is that there's a feeling that we are not paying attention to them. Mainly Jerry, she really needs to be talked to and assured that we are interested and do care about what she thinks, do care about the building. Of course we care about
the board needs to come to Mary, who is the director, give whatever thoughts from the board. And then if they need to come to a meeting like this, they can come to the meeting. We're not ignoring. We can't answer something that they ain't gave us nothing to talk about.
I have suggested that, Earl.
And you know, and she did her thing at the University of Delaware, and you know, whatever thought she had, and certainly I've been over that board enough. I mean, Murray has done a fine job. I don't know how much can be added, but it's always good still to listen to what they have to say. And I'm like, Earl, if she has some concerns, let her come to us at this point.
Well, next time I see her, I will relay that. Actually, it's pretty much what I told her. But I did promise her that I would bring this before the board, and I have done it. And I will relay all this back to you.
Because technically, with a new building, Murray has never really come to us to lay out her foundation. I know Rob and others have said, and we have said collectively what we would like to see, and she really hasn't completed that because of COVID. And she has had short openings with people coming with the dance and with basketball and other activities, but there's never been anything wholesale given to us yet. So it's a catch-22, but I'm like, girl, let her come here and you know, say what she wants.
I agree. And last on my list, if the board would like, I'm probably going to do this anyway, but I'll stop around to the McEwen's house and relay our sympathies to Cheryl, to Ed's wife.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah, I spoke to her, and if Rob remember, we were in Nick's Ribeye or something in Ocean City for one time, and we were sitting there having dinner, and of course Ed, the jokester that he was, and Joe Fasona was there, and then these people came upstairs with this great big cake, and they started singing to Joe Fasona, and Joe didn't have sense enough to say it wasn't his birthday, and his wife was sitting there, so they sang him happy birthday. You remember, Rob?
Oh, absolutely.
That was funny.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it was. Rob, is that it?
Yeah, except for a few things which I'll bring up at a later date. It's a little premature anyway.
All right, thank you. This is the time we open up the floor, but I've got Council President Bob Meffley. I think he wanted to make a comment or two to us this evening. Maybe. You're still on mute. There you go.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. Thank you, commissioners. So, listen, we have a problem in the council, and our council, what the problem is a zoning slash acquisition came in front of the council. And what this was for is right off the I-95 corridor on 279 on Bell Hill Road. And Gene and I talked about that. We didn't know anything about this till it hit us in the face. We didn't know anything. I guess what happened by doing my homework, it looks like the past administration had been working on this for quite a while. They had a game plan what was going to happen, but that administration's not there anymore. And what's happened, and I've talked to John Downs about this, is I said, John, which way does this go first? If we have to approve it at the council, because it's not only annexation to the town of Elkton, it's a zoning change. So it's like two things combined into one. Like, my opinion, the zoning change should have been first with the county, and then they should have came for the acquisition for the project. But I don't know whether the time happened, whether the players changed. I don't know what happened. But the council is having a rough time making a decision because we don't know if the town of Elkton has made a decision. And I guess what I was trying for is to see if the town of Elkton is in favor of this. I assume that the council is going to be in favor of it also and give it right back to you. But we don't know how Elkton feels. And maybe in council president, I don't want to approve something. Then the town says, well, Bob, we don't want to do that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like the chicken or the egg, which one came first? And the way this is written, it should be, I think it should go to the town. The town ought to say, well, this is our thing. Have a public hearing if they want, and then come to the council. It's just backwards from the way it should be. But I guess that is, and John, you could correct me if I'm wrong. I guess that's the way it's written at this point.
Is John on there?
Yeah, he's on here. He's hitting his mute button.
All right.
There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. And I've spoken also with Evan Rollins as well. And I think Bob has put his hand on it pretty well in
Hey,
that.
John, can I cut you off real quick? So
Sure.
the rest of the board knows what this is about. It's the heirs annexation, which is on Bell Hill Road and 279. It's the property that hasn't came in front of the town of Elkton board, which by or did it? You know, it did come in. No, it did come in front of us. It came in front of us. What we needed to happen by what the state of Maryland is telling us is that the county either has to say, yes, we're going to accept the zoning as, keep the zoning as high density residential, or you're going to turn it over as industrial. I might be paraphrasing here a little bit, but I wanted to give the board that information. John, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that's fine. So I think this got a little bit more complicated than it needed to because of the fact that we have a rezoning issue and an annexation issue. And the county, I think, was looking at it as, in order for us to rezone, we need to have public meetings and all of this information. And with Eric Sindstrom leaving, after having worked on this project off and on for about a year, there was a bit of a void. And I think Evan and I have come together on a plan, I think, that would let us move forward. I believe that the whole rezoning and annexation issue from the county level happens organically as part of the annexation process. And I think it just it got confusing for people that hadn't been involved in it for some time. I think what Bob Methley is probably looking for is, without a vote or a commitment, just a general sense of, is this something the town's interested in? Because, to be honest, I don't think he wants to be embarrassed. They jumped through all these hoops only to turn it over to the town, and the town says, what are you doing? We're not even interested. So I think that's probably what he's looking for to go forward. And then I think Evan Rollins and I can work together with county planning and zoning to get this back in front of the council for an up or down vote.
I'm going to interject, and I'm going to ask Gene Minner to jump on. Gene and I actually met with, I guess, the prospective developer of this afternoon. And Gene, do you see any why the planning board wouldn't recommend this in favor?
No, as a matter of fact, the way the process works, the applicant submits a petition for annexation. And at that point in time, your board, the mayor and commissioners, will either accept or not accept the petition for annexation, which allows it to move forward to a public hearing. So once the petition was accepted, there's an advertising time for our public hearing, which is about 45 days after the public notice, the first public notice is published.
And
in that amount of time, in that time, and you did accept the petition for annexation.
Okay, yes.
And then, so then the next step is that we prepare an annexation plan. And I did prepare an annexation plan, and that plan is sent to the county and to the state planning offices. And in this particular instance, we're requesting also, a change in zoning, but the notification is the county commissioners can comment on the annexation. They have we give them 30 days before the meeting to give them enough time to comment on the annexation. In this case, we're asking for consent to the change in zoning. It's just a consent to allow for the change in zoning. I had already received a review letter back from the Maryland Department of Planning. They didn't have a problem with it. The Planning Commission would not have a problem with this annexation or the zoning because it's in our comprehensive plan that this area is in our growth area, and the anticipated zoning was highway interchange because it's right next to the highway interchange.
Hey, Gene, I received a letter, or I think the mayor did, from county exec who was pretty adamant against the change in zoning. So I'm not sure how all that played into decision making by the council, the county council, in that process.
I can tell you, we haven't made a decision on it. When we had it, and Gene was at the meeting, we had it, we tabled it because what I wanted is a decision by the town of Elkton. The biggest concern that the county had was who would own Bell Hill Road, because you have town, county, town, and you have one area that's kind of it's isolated by both sides, and you can't, if Elkton takes it over, you can't have a county strip of land in the center, as we all know. So by talking to the different parties and stuff, they've come up with a plan where actually the road will be split and all the development will go on to Bell Hill Road and goes down to the intersection, which the town owns anyway, and trying to get I'm sure they are going to have the developer redo the road for the town, redo the intersection, and then everything goes to the town of Elkton, and the upper end where they have the housing area now belongs to the county. So the citizens that have the apartments up on a hill won't interfere with the truck traffic. They're going out Appleton Road. You guys are going out 279. So that's where it all stays. I know this sounds crazy, but all I needed from the town is, what do they think of this idea? Because I really think the county council, the county administration, I know they've told us they're against it, but it's a county council decision. It's not the administration's decision.
So I guess if the road was split, Lou, how do you feel about that?
Well, if the board makes a decision, and what I'd like to do is get clarification from the developer. Would they mill and pave that road? If we knew that, that'd be an easy decision to make. If they ignore, and we have to use our highway user revenue to fix up a road for that developer. I don't particularly like that idea, but right. I think that they should. The county's the same way. If a developer is going to have an impact on a road, especially a commercial or industrial impact, they should be responsible for milling and paving that road.
I think in our discussion, Gene and I's discussion, I think when I mentioned a couple about the improvements of the road, I don't think there was any issue there. Do you, Gene?
No, I didn't get the impression that that was a problem.
Well, as I said, the council will make a decision on it. We do know the decision of the county executive, and we'll talk to the county executive about it. But what really helps me is a decision from, and helps the council, is a decision from the town of Elkton per se. Because I don't want to go through, like, and Lou, you already said it, I don't want to jump through hoops and I get on the other side and there's nobody there.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I would say this, we're going to have Gene Minner, if you and Lewis can talk tomorrow and show them where that line would be for the road, I'll be happy to take it over to Bob Meffley in the next day or so and show him where we would accept. And then I think that would help all parties.
Yeah, well, they won't be there tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow. Friday, theoretically.
Yeah.
Rob, we had a presentation that has a map and stuff that I can gladly forward over to the town.
That'd be great. If you could get it to Gene, that would be wonderful.
And John, am I correct with what I'm doing now?
Yes, I believe that the most recent presentation by Evan probably resolved those issues that were of concern to the council. And now I think it's just a matter of how we go forward. I think you've gotten the sense the town is interested in this project. They can't guarantee that it would be approved, but the sense is that it would be approved.
Okay.
And so that you can move forward and let me and Evan work on this thing and we'll get it teed up for the council.
Well, like I said, I'd talk to the council and I definitely sit down and talk to the county executive, just to see what's what, make sure everybody's on the same page. But I really appreciate your input tonight. I appreciate you listening to me because sometimes it's tough to make a decision, the right one.
I know. Believe me, I know. And
Yeah.
Bob, thank you for being on here tonight, and thank you for everything you do. You do a great job in that role.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, have you here. I've had your company out to my shop many times over the last couple of months, and I'm very happy. All your workers are great, and all the work is great. Very happy.
You might,
broke, but I'm happy.
You might not be happy with the new one. We had a gentleman the other day help us put in a water heater. Now he's considered a plumber. His name's Earl.
Earl, glad Earl's on mute. No. Well, listen, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay, is there any?
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to say anything for the good of the town of Elkton this evening?
Hey, Rob.
Yes, Lisa.
Hey, with the Elkton Housing Authority stuff, do we have a sense of when the new board members would be appointed? I've received communications from Peter Kirsch, who's handling the settlement with Ingerman, and they're trying to figure out, they've got some deadlines. I think they're probably about 30 days out, but they've got to get this
I would say to you that I will make a recommendation to the board at the first meeting in March.
Okay.
Is the next time that we meet. And I would feel comfortable that everyone will support those board members. And we'll have 2 new board members at probably by 12:30 Wednesday, March. I don't know what date that is in March, but the first Wednesday in March, I feel pretty comfortable having 2 new board members.
Okay, perfect. I'll let them know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, guys.